Well, this concerns the Chrystul Kizer case. If you remember, Chrystul Kizer is a young female that went in and shot a man by the name of Randall Volar, ostensibly because he was sexually trafficking her. I've covered this story many, many times on my channel. I'm not going to go through it all over again here. I'm sure that most of you have already familiarized yourself with this case. What we're going to talk about here is how Court TV is going to handle this if they're given the chance. And what I mean by that is that if this case is televised, it'll probably be Court TV that covers it. And, well, get ready for a lot of hijinks. Hello out there. I am trying to get through.
With his powerful brainwaves cradled in the warmth of reasoning, it's time for Johnny Walker Dread to straighten you out on a thing or two. Emanating all the way from exciting Las Vegas, Oklahoma, it's the Johnny Walker Dread Show.
And criminal defense attorney John Mobley to talk a little bit about this. John, boy, oh boy, is this interesting. You know, the state was saying, okay, look, if you want immunity, it's got to be something that kind of falls within the realm of sex trafficking. And the highest court saying, no, 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 you can present this immunity defense for homicide here because this is something that would flow therefrom, the abuse that one suffers at the hands of the person trafficking them and holding them in a hostage type situation.
A hostage type situation. She's living in Milwaukee, he's living in Kenosha. Explain how that is a hostage type situation.
Might justify what was done here. Do you think, now knowing what she can do with her defense, do you think she's got a good shot at winning this case when it goes?
I think she's got an excellent shot. You know, this decision actually reminds me of when the court finally recognized, you know, battered spouse syndrome as a self-defense and expanded the right of self-defense to include that. And for our viewers, you know, historically there are laws about self-defense, but at some point the court determined that a woman that was abused by a spouse could have a heightened sense of fear of death, even if there was no, you know, actual abuse occurring at the time, and could use that as a defense in murder cases when they shot and killed an abusive spouse that was not actually in the act of abusing them. And
first of all, battered spouse syndrome, I recognize that he's not necessarily claiming that this is a battered spouse case. First of all, Chrystul Kizer was not a spouse. Second of all, she wasn't living with Randall Volar at the time. Hardly this type of situation where a person could not escape the violence of her husband. Just so that you know here, this is the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs. They're talking about battered woman syndrome. I don't know why it can't be applied to men, but okay. Actually, this was written in 1996. I think that the verbiage has changed, and now it is battered spouse syndrome, so I should correct myself. And it says here, the battered woman syndrome expands the concept of legal self-defense. This defense holds that a battered woman is virtually held hostage in a violent household by a man who isolates and terrorizes her, convincing her that if she leaves, he will track her down and kill her. There is no evidence of that at all. At least nothing that I have seen. There might be some evidence of that we haven't seen yet, but nothing has surfaced. The American Psychiatric Association conceptualizes BWS as the development of a set of personality attributes brought on by abuse that render the victim more able to survive in the relationship and less able to escape it. Okay, so let me skip down here. It is also important to recognize that the criminal justice system does not protect women from abuse. Gee, who's been saying that forever? Gun rights proponents. And by the way, this is the OJP. This is the government talking. They're saying that the criminal justice system cannot protect you. A battered woman may not be able to obtain a restraining order or keep it in effect. That's right, because the restraining order does nothing more than tell your attacker where you're living. Get a gun. So here's a pretty good review of battered spouse syndrome. Notice they changed the name, so I stand corrected. This was in 2018. It's fairly thorough for being only 19 pages. There's some mistakes in it. For example, it states here, even the oft-quoted rule of thumb stems from accepted domestic violence and allowed a man to beat his wife as long as the implement he used was no thicker than his thumb. That is an old myth. It's not even a good myth. It comes from the width of the thumb being used in measurement. Come on. Okay, so let's get back.
Basically, this decision appears to be along the same line for victims of sex trafficking. And, I definitely believe that, it can be successful in this case. Oftentimes,
I hate oftentimes. Just say often.
When you have, someone that's a victim of a crime and they're trying to use a defense of self-defense and murder, oftentimes the law can kind of tie a jury's hands where they can want to give someone the benefit of the doubt, but the law was so clear that, hey, although we feel sorry for you or we believe you, what occurred does not fit within the confines of the law and it doesn't apply to your case, and they have no choice or feel they have but no choice but to convict the victim/defendant. But
those are the cases where the judge uses the sentencing to take into account some of these situations. So yes, technically you were convicted. However, instead of giving you 60 years, we give you probation. Remember, this is Kenosha.
Now what this does is if the jury believes that a person is a victim of sex trafficking and they want to find a legitimate way to acquit them, they have the legal mechanism to do it.
Well, they might. Again, the thing that these lawyers are all missing, there is no guarantee that the jury is going to be given this option in the jury instructions. Now, sure, there can be jury nullification, but he's not describing that. What he is describing is the fact that in the jury instructions, they're going to be asked to consider the possibility that her shooting of Volar aligned with this sexual trafficking affirmative defense. But there is no guarantee that the judge is going to allow that defense to be placed in the jury instructions. Will he? Probably.
Exactly, John. Exactly. Excellent points you made. And another interesting fact that we've learned through following this case is that nearly 40 states have passed laws giving trafficking victims at least some type of criminal immunity.
Sure, some type of criminal immunity for things like prostitution and maybe drug possession. We're talking murder here, and as far as I know, Wisconsin is the only state stupid enough to allow murder, or let's say homicide, to be included in a sexual trafficking affirmative defense. It's just insane that just because you were sexually trafficked at one point, that gives you a license to kill your pimp. I mean, this is vigilante justice. I thought that we weren't supposed to be doing that in this country. If you're being sexually trafficked, you can go to the police, just like any other victim. Yes, the police don't necessarily help you, but that doesn't mean that that's not your obligation.
This is according to Legal Action of Wisconsin, and that's an organization helping give legal assistance to those people who may be indigent. And so this is good to know that there is some protection out there, for people like Chrystul Kizer who are suffering. And this one just...
People like Chrystul Kizer who are suffering? Yeah, this court TV is going to be really non-biased, isn't it? They have already sided with her. They have already declared her innocent. And they're probably going to get the coverage of this trial. You know what that's going to look like. It's going to look like the Kyle Rittenhouse trial, except in the opposite sense, where they had him guilty all along and simply would not budge from that. Well, actually, a few of the lawyers started to concede towards the end that Kyle was probably going to get acquitted. But for the most part, Court TV is clearly siding with Chrystul Kizer on this deal. It's not just this lady, it's all of these lawyers. They're all getting on here and talking about how Chrystul has an excellent case and how she has been terribly treated, and old Randall Volar deserved what he got. Now, to be honest, he did, but she's not the one that's supposed to be delivering the justice there. That's called vigilante justice. We don't allow that in this country, or at least I thought we didn't.
Has been so heartbreaking from the outset, and she's had such an enormous outpouring.
Oh my gosh, heartbreaking. Think about it. How can you trust this person to examine the facts and come out with an objective view on her guilt or innocence? She has already declared Chrystul Kizer a horrible victim of Randall Volar and purely innocent. Yeah, well, guess what? When the evidence starts coming out, we're going to see a different picture of Chrystul Kizer. I guarantee you.
Of support. Since the time, I mean, this is back in 2018. We've been tracking this case and following it, and
not terribly closely, though, have you? At no point have you ever acknowledged what she did. The car theft while eluding police. She admitted to stealing a whole bunch of cars. It turns out that she texted somebody, I think it was her brother, that she was going to get Randall Volar's car after she shot him. Gee, that kind of sounds like she went down to kill him to get his car, and it was nothing to do with sexual trafficking. And guess what? There doesn't seem to be any evidence, at least none that I have seen, that she was ever sexually trafficked. Yet they buy into it. Hook, line, and sinker. They're all in for her.
I can't wait to see if this one goes to trial. We know our cameras are generally allowed in Wisconsin. We're in a Wisconsin trial now. So if this one goes, wouldn't that be great to see it play out, John? This is one that I would love to see if the state doesn't withdraw the charges. And I don't think they're going to do that at this point. I could be wrong. Do you?
I could be wrong. Lady, you are never right. I have covered you on a number of these cases. You're never right. This is supposed to be a law professor.
That's a good question for you. Do you think maybe this ruling from the Supreme Court might change their move and moving forward here?
It's definitely going to change your strategy.
I don't know about that. I think that Gravely will probably keep with his original strategy. He has the evidence, at least he says he does, that she murdered that man. He's going to present it. I don't think that this is going to really affect that at all, but okay, I disagree.
And one thing I think about as well is how this ruling may be used in other cases. I mean, I think oftentimes victims of sex trafficking.
This ruling might be used in other cases. Gee, no shit. A ruling by the Wisconsin Supreme Court might be used in other cases. Yeah. I think they call that stare decisis, precedents. It's probably going to happen.
Continue to be victimized, even within the system that's supposed to be trying to protect them. Often these young girls, they're arrested for prostitution, when they're being made to get out there and do these things, and there's no defense to them, and they're being further, victimized. They're being prosecuted, and those things aren't being considered. So I believe this ruling is going to have some far-reaching effects.
What do you mean far-reaching effects? It's not like people are going to say, hey, wait a minute. Chrystul Kizer got away with shooting somebody dead. Maybe this ruling by the Supreme Court will protect this one sexually trafficked victim, drug possession charges. Gee, no shit. The whole purpose of the actual law was not designed to allow people to shoot each other. It was designed for these other charges like drug possession and prostitution. It's not like people are going to be all of a sudden surprised to learn that this ruling by the Wisconsin Supreme Court is going to be applicable to these other lesser offenses when the law was designed for these other lesser defenses. And by the way, this is a man by the name of John Mobley, and this was posted on his YouTube channel. So I don't know if he paid for the rights to this, or if he just stole it, or maybe they allow guest speakers to post their videos on their channels. I don't understand that at all, but that's not my problem. But he does have his watermark on there, which is rather interesting. I don't know how he got away with that. Oh, at any rate, like my videos, subscribe to my channel, and get ready for a whole lot of horse manure coming from Court TV as we get closer to the Chrystul Kizer case.